So OAuth 2 is an authorization framework that enables applications to have limited access to a resource on behalf of a resource owner, the user. For example, you may have had certain scenarios where you wanted to share images from your Google Drive to another application, and you may have used some of the links within the application. The browser will prompt you, says, hey, this given app, in this example here, Cool Course Uploader, wants to view and manage files in your Google Drive, and you can give yes or no if you want to allow them to have permissions to do that. So behind the scenes, OAuth 2 is being used to provide this type of functionality. So let's kind of look at this with an example here. So we have this resource owner with this protected resource, this client app, and this authorization server. All of these players here are going to kind of play together. So the resource owner in the top left, that's the user, okay, like your user account. Over on the top right, the protected resource, that's the Google Drive with your files and so forth. The client app in the bottom left, that's maybe some application that you're using to try and integrate with your Google Drive. And then the authorization server in the bottom right, this is the person who will actually have information as far as the permissions and roles and so forth, as far as what a user can do for accessing different resources. So those are the big players here. Now, let's look at a nice sequence diagram to see how they all play together. So we have this resource owner and we have this client application. So the client app says, hey, I need to request authorization. So, hey, user, can I access your Google Drive to do X, Y, and Z? And the resource owner can grant authorization and then sends it over to the authorization server. So the authorization server will provide an auth token to the client application. The client app will use that auth token to also request a access token. So this access token will actually have the details as far as how they can access this given resource, and also will have details as far as what they can do. So then they'll send over the access token to the protected resource, and then they can go ahead and use the actual resource and so forth. At a very high level, this is how the interaction or interchange works, use of OAuth 2 for authorization. So now we have OpenID Connect. So OpenID Connect is an identity layer on top of OAuth 2. So OAuth 2 really only provides support for authorization. OpenID Connect will allow you to have authentication. So basically this allows clients to receive identity information about authenticated resource owners or users. And so they'll provide a special ID token that has information about the user, their details, and anything else that's been published via the authorization server. So I've been mentioning a lot about tokens. Well, there's a standard way of describing a token, and that's using the JSON Web Token or JWT. And then also just a quick little side note here, JWT, you may hear some people also refer to this as JWT, J-A-W-T as far as pronouncing it. So it's up to you if you want to use JWT or JWT. It's an open standard that defines a self-contained way of describing tokens. It's secure and digitally signed to guarantee integrity, and it's used by OAuth and OpenID Connect. And so this token is kind of the item that's passed back and forth, like in that previous example I said, as far as auth tokens, access tokens, ID tokens, they all make use of the standard way of describing the tokens using JSON Web Tokens. So this JSON Web Token, well-defined way of describing the format of a token. So we have a header that basically describes the algorithm and the type of token that they're using, the payload. So in this case, any type of content here, in this case, we could have a name for an identity token, Susan Public, and then we can have the actual signature. So these JSON Web Tokens, like I mentioned earlier, they're signed to preserve or guarantee the integrity of the token. Alrighty, so this brings us up to authorization servers. So what exactly is an authorization server? Well, at a very high level, you can say that an authorization server can generate tokens and also define security policies. Now, not all authorization servers are created equal. Some offer more features than others. You can actually create some very simple solutions for authorization servers where you could create your own simple solution with code, and you can write all the low-level coding for that. So I normally recommend against doing this because you could easily expose, your code could be vulnerable to some security holes or flaws or whatever. So You can do the very basic, hobby project, weekend project with an auth server, but for anything real time, you need a more enterprise solution. So regarding real-time enterprise solutions, these are off-the-shelf solutions for companies that specialize in security. So that's all they do every day is security. They have full-time employees who simply focus on writing secure code and providing secure services. They make use of these services via cloud-based solutions and also on-premise solutions. And we'll take a look at some of these solutions in the upcoming videos. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this security is a huge topic, very broad, very wide. So if you'd like to get more info on OAuth 2, you can go to oauth2.net, for OpenID Connect, openid.net, and also JSON Web Tokens at jwt.io.